Welcome to the Tao of Sports podcast with Troy Kirby, covering sports business with over 300 industry leaders from across the globe. Now, here is your host, Troy Kirby.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Sports podcast. I'm Troy Kirby, along with episode 886 of the podcast. Today's guest, Craig Cugno. Now, he is at Tamar Sales University. That is a new third-party model that has been introduced really in the last few years. He is with, as president and general manager of the University of Connecticut Athletics. Of course, they have been going great in both men's and women's basketball. They've done a lot of great stuff. Thought it would be really important to talk to him really about what success looks like. It is great to talk about when you're kind of in the middle or in the bottom part, what you're doing innovatively. But when you're already successful, how do you keep pushing it? How do you keep pushing that envelope? What do you keep doing that's a little bit different? Because success can always go away, and doesn't everybody know it? They always have some interesting things they can do with football, which has not always been as successful. Not trying to rip on it, but still, you do have to kind of look at those models and see what can we do that's a little bit different. Great conversation with Craig Cugno right here on episode 886 of the Tao of Sports. Well, Craig, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. One of the things that, you must really, have difficulties with your job because you have two of the worst basketball teams in college basketball perennially, and that just must be tough to sell.
Yeah, man. It's certainly is a little bit of a headache from time to time. Just kidding. It's a lot of fun, man. I grew up in Connecticut, so this has been a dream of mine in order to, work at UConn, and had the opportunity a little while back, and can remember going to games with my father in Hartford from the time I can remember, when I was really young in Hartford, watching the men. I've followed them since '99. Or even earlier with Ray Allen in '96. So, it goes back a ways, and I'm very, very grateful to have the opportunity to be here. Good time to sell, that's for sure, for basketball. That's for sure.
One of the things I actually liked was Gino and the women's basketball team actually came to UC Davis when I was there as a ticket manager. And they were doing a one-on-one. One was Stanford, and then they would play a little down. We called it our fundraiser because, wow, they sold out everything. But two things. Number one, fell in love with Breanna Stewart just in the way she played her game the whole bit, and it was great to see her up at the Seattle Storm. But it was also meeting the fans. And there is a fan base that is not really recognized by any other type of college basketball other than UConn. And, I would just say that they're not just, hey, I'm here for, being able to follow the winner. I'm here because this is this legacy, whether it's Breanna Stewart, whether it's Sue Bird, whether it's any of these folks that I can continue to mention. How do you caretake that type of audience that is completely separate from anybody else?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Thankfully, having been local and growing up here, I have a feel, for the passion that is within this fan base, both on the women's side and on the men's side. And, we're in a unique spot in Connecticut where we don't have any professional teams. And I think that plays a big role here, in terms of really having a program, and as you mentioned, a legacy that is, fun to watch, fun to be a part of, doing things the right way. I think that adds to it, where it's not the only thing, but it's the biggest thing, certainly. And it's funny when you talk to folks on the phones, UConn is such a brand, that also, makes it a little bit different and separates it. I feel like, Gino, he's been there longer than I've been alive. So that's really all you need to know in terms of legacy and the history that's going on there. Some of the best players to play in the WNBA, and even some greats in the NBA, are coming from UConn, and we travel, and, it's no joke, man. It's definitely a passion, and, I'm proud to be part of that fan base.
How do you innovate when you have such a fan base that you're going to have a sellout? You're going to it's not like you haven't won national titles on both, etc. So can you really be able to do some of those innovative things like different ticket packages, membership moves, any of those things? Because, you don't want to disrupt what you've already got.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question too. I would say that my job, since I got the role here, I got the role 6 weeks before the pandemic. So that was a real fun first year for me in the role. But when we got out of the pandemic, we started to, pick up steam. It was perfect timing heading into the Big East, back to the Big East, I should say. And we started to sell more tickets, but it wasn't like every single game was being sold out, similar to how it is now. And even what people don't understand is the men and women, they play half of their games on campus at Gamble, holds about 9, 10,000. And then they play half of the games, literally a dead even split, at the XL Center in Hartford, which is 15,000. It's a lot of seats, So every game, when I started, wasn't sold out. But along this last path of success on both the men's and women's side, we do have some inventory from time to time that we do have the ability to be flexible with. Me personally, coming from minor league, prior to my time at my alma mater, URI, I was working for minor league baseball in Connecticut. I was working for minor league hockey. So my passion really started with group ticket sales, getting youth players, youth teams involved, watching them light up as they get a high five, from a player coming out of the locker room or getting on the field or on the court in order to scrimmage at halftime. That was really what made me passionate about the sales world within ticket space, and it's just blossomed from there. So we still have the ability to do those types of activations in terms of different type of group experiences from time to time. On the men's side this year, coming off the national championship, it's been interesting as my job is more transitioned from a sales role to an inventory management role, to your point, because there's obviously the demand there, but I think we're moving into a new space of ticket sales where it's not just about selling the ticket. It's about maximizing that revenue and making sure that we're generating as much as we can for the university. And it's moving to a place now where you're aware, Troy, where it's airlines kind of, in the sense that you could have a seat in the stadium, and then the person next to you, because they bought at a different time or from a different area, they paid 2 times as much. And it's about being strategic with the inventory that we have available, in terms of season tickets that are sold, in terms of how we're selling single game tickets, and so on and so forth. So, it's an interesting new time, but, I've certainly learned a lot, and I feel like we're in a really good place right now, especially compared to, when I had arrived prior to the Big East, getting back to that.
Well, the other thing, and I will compliment you on this, is you went to the Cuisinarts first. And I always wonder, and I always do feel sorry, and I'm going to say it, I feel sorry for anybody who starts in a success story, because it's really hard to be able to prove yourself. But then when you go to the place where it happened, I mean, you talk college basketball. I have nothing against the Rams in Rhode Island or anything else, but let's be honest, it's not the same.
Mm,
So, you
yeah.
know, if you're coming from the highlight and the high water mark of constant sellouts and the good problem to have of 9,000 to 15, it's a
Hmm.
little different when you can't even fill three.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
is that something that has made you more flexible in the fact that you have gone from the small in order to get to the big?
No question. And I think that working in minor league sports in general, it's kind of it's a different world. Minor league baseball, you're out there, you are meeting with a group leader in the stands, and then it starts raining and you're saying, "Hold on, I'll be right back," running onto the field to pull tarp. And coming back into the stands soaking wet to continue your conversation. There's just a different mentality, a different work ethic, I think, that comes from folks that start off in the minor league field. So that's really benefited me as I move forward in my career. And I think that I learned the fundamentals, as far as how to fill seats, maybe when demand isn't as high, getting back to kind of not only just specialty packages, but again, group ticket sales. I can't stress that enough, how important that is. We're seeing it right now where we've got seats to fill at, with UConn football. I don't think that's a secret. Got a big stadium over at East Hartford, 40,000 seats. And, because of that, we've been able to increase our yearly attendance year over year. The last 2 years, my team and I have sold 30,000 group tickets over the course of 2 years. And I think that that's really played a big role in terms of figuring out ways to fill seats first and foremost. And then from there, trying to adapt and figure out, hey, now that we have the demand, how are we going to utilize this demand and best utilize it in order to maximize the revenue. So yes, I do think it has helped me in my career.
Well, I always think that you either have an innovation or an excuse. And, you can look at it and go, oh, well, our record isn't well in football or whatever. And whether that's traditionally true, isn't that where the creativity comes out? And it's not just in the tickets, but in that experience that everyone, shines on, that there are other things that we can do because nobody's really going to watch that store. And isn't
Mhm.
that really coming back to that minor league baseball? I
Mhm.
mean, look back, it might be a little tempered down now, but minor league baseball was nuts. Minor league baseball would be like, hey, you want to do this? Let's figure this out, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it gets back to that creativity piece where you're trying to use what you have at your disposal, and that's where the group experience piece, at least, is so big for me because whenever I get somewhere, I'm going to the venue and I'm walking around doing a couple of laps, looking at the space that we have, looking at see how we can utilize it, and really, again, the word maximize, but maximizing these experiences for these groups that otherwise maybe wouldn't attend a sporting event, if we're being honest, unless we can provide them something that is beneficial to them. An example would be a performance group, an opportunity for a dance group or, any type of performance opportunity for them to perform in front of the fans that are already coming to the game. We kind of allow these folks an opportunity. We allow them an audience that they can perform in front of, as long as they're willing to, sell X amount of tickets in order to take advantage of that opportunity. But, when I was at the XL Center, there's an atrium area that we would have dance groups perform at as people were walking into the stadium. At the football games, I brought that to UConn football. And now during our Fan Fest, we have 2 slots pre-game every game where a dance group can come out and perform, and they can perform in front of all the tailgaters. So it's a win-win situation. Not to mention we're allowing them to fundraise off of keeping a portion of every ticket sold that they're making as they come out. And it allows us to also, by doing what I just mentioned, allows us to free up some of the more traditional experiences, the halftime slot. You can double up and triple up in terms of the performance groups that come out to each game, when doing that. But again, it comes back to that creativity. You got to ask the question. I hate whenever I get somewhere and I'm told, well, that's not how we've done in the past. I actually get a kick out of that because I'm kind of like, well, we should maybe take a look at this because I've seen it successful elsewhere, and maybe it would help us turn some things around and make it more of a success, here. So I'm looking forward to continuing to innovate and come up with new creative ways in which we can generate fans and maximize revenue.
So what is amazing about this is if you rewind the clock 15 years, colleges were not doing this.
Yeah.
Colleges certainly were not going to third-party reps. They were not going to
Mhm.
third-party businesses. I want to say Matt DeFebo was the first guy doing it at UCF. That was kind of, and I'll always give him that credit because I mean, I had athletic directors at the time that were telling me that'll never work here. Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll never do commissions here. And then all of a sudden they started to see the drop off. And is that really where the pandemic has actually created the second wave of this to where it was great to have your little, pod that you controlled, whatever. You've got to be more creative. You can't wait because here's the thing, if you don't have the fans, you don't have the alumni, you don't have anything. Has this actually sparked us to be actually more innovative than we would have even at this time had the pandemic not happened?
I would say so. I mean, I think it took everybody and rocked our industry pretty good in terms of taking away the ability to sell tickets. We had to figure out other ways to generate. We saw, virtual fundraisers. We saw cardboard cutouts. We saw, even the NBAs, they're putting up the virtual fans on the stands, in the background of the bubble. Like, there were people that were thinking way outside the box. Probably want to forget a little bit of that time as well because we were so far outside of the box. But yeah, it helps us generate and come and continue to be more creative, and that's what we need. We can't be stagnant. We have to continue to push the envelope. We have to make asks. We have to see how far we can take this because I feel as though we're still just scratching the surface. As you mentioned, it's only been how many years? And when I got to my first college role coming out of minor league, bringing in some of the group experience ideas, they were looking at me like I had 10 heads. And I just said, trust me, we're going to implement these. It will work, and you will see that the attendance will increase for not just the best games that we have, but all the games consistently, just by implementing something like, a foolproof group system. So I do think I think that that's a real important part of all of this, and everybody needs to be, getting creative and pushing the envelope on that front.
There is a lady, and I can't even think of her name, but she was an associate AD at Cal Berkeley, and she had the cardboard cutout thing. She was ahead of her time. She had it back in like 2008 or
Wow.
2009 at a net. And I remember two or three of our ticket managers, kind of laughing at that. Why would we ever do that? To me, that shows that the fan wanted to be involved. The fan wasn't just there to buy a ticket, wasn't just there to do anything. And look, I'll admit when somebody's ahead of the curve, apparently, I always thought maybe a weekend of Bernie's thing, and then somebody put that up at a Dodgers game. But at the same time, it's just not, but you have to admit that you don't know it all. And is that not part of ticket sales, is that we consistently humble ourselves? Whereas other people, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but if you don't humble yourself, if you don't say, I don't know it all, you end up becoming the tragedy that, gets left behind at the time. Were much more lucrative than I would have thought.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, I think everyone was, whether you're a person who is conscious of that and always should be reminding themselves that, to try to humble themselves and make sure that you're reminding yourself, I don't know everything and I can always learn. I always try to be conscious of that when I'm sitting in a room. Certainly if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I'm in the wrong room, one of those types of situations. I think everybody was forced, regardless of how they are normally, to understand and realize, oh, wow, we're in waters that we've never been in before. And it caused everyone to have to really, bear down, brainstorm, work together, and think, what are some ideas that we can do in order to generate this? Getting back to your original point in terms of the fans with the cutouts, yeah, I'm speaking selfishly almost in the sense of, oh, the industry was rocked. I mean, everyone was rocked, right? Across all industries. It wasn't just us. And I think also the part of this that impacts the people that we sell tickets to, they're impacted. When they come out to these games, whether they're season ticket holders, single game buyers, group buyers, this is an escape from what their normal day to day, is. And it's an opportunity for them to come out, kick back, relax for a couple of hours and forget about everything else going on in their life, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think that when we removed that opportunity for folks to go into 10 games, everyone was hurting. And I think that this, to your point, was an opportunity for us to say, getting them involved, not just supporting from a financial, but even from, putting their cardboard cutout in the stands. I know that I had a bunch of season ticket holders that would be taking photos or screenshots of the TV, the game on the TV, and sending it to us because they saw their cutout in the stands, behind the hoop, and it makes them feel more involved and it gets them more engaged. And it was really important for the overall well-being of everyone and their mental health that kept everyone engaged and distracted from what the craziness that was going on elsewhere.
So this comes back to my original thing. You've got two basketball teams. Yes, you're going from 9,000 to 15, but don't tell me you can't sell the 15. But how do you make sure that you're humbling yourself to say this could end tomorrow? And I hate to suggest that. I mean,
No,
Gino
you're
could
right.
walk outside, slip on a thing of ice, and decide that he's no longer going to coach. You can have all those issues that come up, and there are certainly powerhouses, that have just gone the wayside the second the coach retired, right? I mean, look at
Yeah.
Tennessee. How do you make sure that you're consistently building off of that to make sure? I know you can't sell wins, but how do you make sure that you're doing enough that you're really not stagnant? Because that's where the problem is. Jim Calhoun, there was a little bit of a drop off on the men's side. I know I'm going back a little bit. They did okay, but you know what I'm saying. It's just that whole idea of you can't stop, otherwise it's going to stop for you.
100%. And I mean, I've been along and worked for enough teams long enough to realize that what we have going here is we are incredibly lucky to have this, and I'm not taking it for granted. I'm continuously and letting my team know the same thing, especially I have some younger reps that this is their first job and their first role, and I'm telling them this is not how it always is. So you better take full advantage of it. And I think the way you do it is, it should empower you, and it should, energize you to work even harder, reach more people, make more phone calls, send more emails, send more communication, collect more data. I think that having the ability to collect buyer data and utilize that to our ability and to our benefit is going to be huge as we move forward, because more people are coming out to our games more consistently than ever before, right? Or at least in the last 10, 15 years. So we need to make sure that we're capitalizing on the folks that are coming out and making sure that we're, staying in communication with them, letting them know that we have offers and ability, whenever we do, ticket opportunities. And I think cross promoting as well. We're trying to not just keep the folks around, but the one thing at the college athletic level, we have 10 ticketed sports at UConn. So you're telling me that, if you're coming to basketball, we want to get you to football. We want to get you to men's hockey, men's and women's soccer, and all the spring sports as well. So it's something where I keep on using the word maximize. And I think that that's really what it comes down to. It's not just from a revenue standpoint, but it's maximizing our brand awareness, taking full advantage of the success and the eyeballs that are on our product, and making sure we're introducing and getting in front of as many people as possible now, so that when things do inevitably at some point, let's hope not, knock on wood, dip down, we have these people and this network that we can continue to go back to, and let them know, that, hey, we're still here. We'd still love your support. And hopefully they'll stick around for that.
Because of the fact you're affiliated with a larger segment, does that also help you when it comes to idea share? Does that also help you with the idea that, there's not just 10 sports, there's a continuous of other schools that might be doing stuff in unsuccessful markets that you can adapt?
Yeah, and I know I keep going, I'm like a broken record here, but I do think that that is one. I was just talking to some folks, a bunch of our interns with Tamar, that I was explaining to them as they're at other properties the benefits of the group sale, because group sales, again, it does not rely on the wins and losses. You could probably do a poll of the folks who come out and they're as part of a group, and ask them on the way out or even during the game, hey, what's the score? And they probably wouldn't even know. They wouldn't know what the team's record is. It wouldn't really matter. And that's why I think it's important for us to keep going down that creative track that we were talking about earlier, to figure out ways in which we can get these folks engaged, not just folks that are fans, but get them things that are going to appeal to different types of groups that otherwise maybe would not come out, getting back to the experience opportunity, getting back to, if it's rewarding our current season ticket holders and donors with various special events, meet the team events, Zoom calls with coaches. You want to make sure you're rewarding these individuals who have been continuously coming out and supporting us, not just when we started to win, especially, but making sure that that's a constant. Hey, your support means a lot to us, and we want to reward you and give you some exclusivity, access to the team events, etc. I think that's really the main thing, is just showing how grateful we are for their support.
And really, I think group sales have been developed more from your point about minor leagues, through the fact that nobody was watching the store for almost, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
From the 90s. And then now it's kind of changed a little bit more with bureaucracy, with Major League Baseball taking over in 2020. I always wonder if that's where, some of the things, because you can't focus on the score in minor league baseball. You can't focus on anything. No one cares, right? I couldn't tell you who won the last 3 Atlantic Division things. But at the same time, if we start really going into this cookie cutter model, are we not going back to what college used to have and really suffered from, which was, we always do it this way. We just have one ticket guy. We just have one person that maybe supports them. We just go, hey, season tickets are around the corner. That's it. Are we not reverting back when we aren't able to be crazy?
I would agree with you. I mean, the old adage of just thinking, hey, we are so and so school, we don't need outbound ticket sales, or we don't need, proactive marketing, or we don't need, promotion. People are going to come to us. Those days are long, long gone. It's not the same for many reasons, but one of the biggest is, our biggest competitor isn't another team. our biggest competitor isn't anything else going on around us in terms of actual events. Our biggest competitor is your couch. You know what I'm saying? Like you can stay home and you can watch the game on TV a lot of time and not have to go pay for parking and so on and so forth and drinks and food. But it's our job to make sure that we're showing the positive benefits of coming out to a game. And the atmosphere and the energy is unmatched, especially when you've got, 10 or 15,000 screaming fans. That's something that we forgot and we're a little disconnected from during the pandemic. And that was my first thought when I got back and we had our first event and we had a lot of fans and it was rocking. I said, man, I miss this. I miss this energy in the stands. That's something that's undeniable. And I feel as though we have to make sure that we are constantly reminding folks that we have, a great product, yes, but it's a great atmosphere, a great fan base, and just a lot of fun. And if you're looking to, get away from what's going on in your day to day, there's no better way to do it than coming up here and supporting these great student athletes.
The thing is, and I'll credit Rob Stein for saying this once, but you're paid to care. How do you make sure that you're not thinking that everybody's going to care the same way you do? Because you're paid to do this.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that people actually want your product?
Well, I think you have to make sure it comes down to like the fundamental systems of my team, at UConn. And I think that I constantly remind my staff, listen, we live, eat, breathe this every single day, from product knowledge to what's going on in the games. That's not the case for everybody, certainly. And it's our job, it's our priority to make us a priority to these individuals and be in front of them. And as long as you're doing it in a respectful manner and you're being, persistently respectful, I should say, and not just hounding folks, all we can do is find out, what's the best fit for the patron, what they're looking to accomplish with a potential outing or with a ticket package, and try to cater our packages to the individual and to the group that is coming out. We're not trying to sell someone something that they don't want or that they don't need. We're trying to figure out and talk and get to know these individuals, build rapport with these individuals, find out what they're trying to accomplish. One person's just trying to go out with their buddy. The other's trying to designate family time with their friends. The other group is looking to come out and do an experience, and the other's looking to do a fundraiser. You don't know that unless you get to know the individual on a personal level. So we're not just, picking up the phone, calling folks and just trying to pitch them seasons. If they came to one or two games the year before, I don't know if seasons is the right move, right? Maybe it's more inclined to get them into a mini plan, expose them to a couple of games. They'll likely have a great time. And I'm confident that once we do that and get them in the sales process and pipeline, that they'll eventually become a full season if their schedule allows and if their wallet allows. But we've got the package prices from very inexpensive and affordable all the way up to premium. And I think we truly do. I'm not just saying this. We do have something for everyone. And I'm confident in that. And I think that, the passion that I have, that my staff has, I think that it adds credibility to when we're speaking with individuals because they know we're not BSing. They know that we're serious and that we really do care, and this means a lot to us. We want to make sure that we can share that fun energy with everybody else if they're willing to come out and trust us and hear us out with what we prescribe as a package for them.
So here's the other part, and it doesn't really come from you. It comes from above you. That market correction also happened in the last 15, 20 years with administrators, because administrators used to be the ones that would fight, wouldn't understand. They came from a different world. Even if they had sold tickets, they hadn't sold tickets. Now that seems to be that they kind of understand, and they're really focused on understanding it's, there's a nuance to it, right? Is that really the support that we've always collectively, when you've sold tickets, been looking for, that's finally been realized that, oh, wait, this tree, we don't feed this tree. There's nothing on the leaves for development, nothing on the leaves for marketing, nothing on the leaves for anything else.
Yeah, I think that, ticket sales has definitely shown its value, not just literally, but, and figuratively in the way that you just said, more specifically over the last few years. A lot of schools that are not Power Five specifically, that are not reliant on media contracts and things of that nature for the athletic department, this ticket revenue is what it is. That is how they're making money, and that is how they're trying to survive, and they're trying to bring folks out and get folks exposed to the product. I will say that I think we know that the fundraising in terms of, the development team and the athletic department is the lifeblood really of any athletic department as a whole. But you know what? We're playing as big a role, in my opinion, as that, because we are a lot of times that pipeline into being potential donors, down the road or even immediately. And that's going to help support these student athletes, pay for scholarships, pay for travel, pay for everything, you name it. It's really important that we're able to identify these individuals who are potential donors. And it usually starts with those who are buying tickets. So again, getting back to building rapport and asking questions, we can identify that through our conversations and put that on the radar of the individuals, over on the development team, who actually myself at Tamar, we were able to, have a couple folks on my staff who are so dedicated only to reaching out to entry-level donors and trying to get them, educated on the benefits of being a donor at UConn. So it's really important initiative to us, and we all work hand in hand. Essentially, we're in meetings with the development team every week, communicating and strategizing and talking with, how can we help this individual get to a certain, level and donor benefit level that they want to be, and making sure we're communicating throughout the process, with that team hand in hand.
So this comes to the idea that you're onboarding interns, but how are they onboarding you to new technology? They're not receiving the technology the same way you are. I mean, are you suddenly doing TikTok videos where you're doing funny dances? How do you sell tickets in the new age? Because sometimes they know stuff we don't.
Yeah, no, it's true. Listen, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know a lot. I say that often, overall. And I think that with the landscape and technology and social media, things are ever changing, continuously. Thankfully, we've got an amazing marketing team over at UConn who works in the athletic department, who, is really on top of this stuff. Between their social media team, creative, they understand kind of the ins and outs of that front. And I think that you need to go where the kids are, and I think that that's going to be setting up TikToks, doing player Q&As via TikTok, doing funny videos, seeing the student athletes loosen up, seeing our coaches loosen up a little bit and have a little bit more of a funny side. That's going to catch the eye of a lot of these students and get them on board. And I think it's all part of the process. If you get them engaged early, get them out to games as a student, hopefully get them on board after they graduate to continue supporting us with a young alumni deal, and then hopefully move them forward and become a donor eventually after a season ticket holder. So it's all part of the process, man. I think you gotta adapt or die, as they say.
Well, Greg, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun time and learned a lot.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Troy. Great to see you, and we'll be talking soon.
Fantastic stuff. So aside from that, everything else good?
Yeah, everything's great.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you coming to NACTA or what?
Oh yeah, I'll be out there. I just wrapped up my last year out of the 4-year commitment on the board.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Sports podcast, focusing on the world of sports business. Download our free iPhone, iPad app in the iTunes App Store, an Android app available on Amazon to listen to the entire archive. Or check out sportstao.com for more podcasts, blog posts, and videos. All episodes of the Tao of Sports podcast are copyrighted and trademarked.